Today, we're going to be previewing the New York Giants. Before we get into this video, if you're new, make sure to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. But let's get into the Giants preview for this upcoming season. First, looking at their additions and losses. For their additions, you got many quarterbacks, including Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Jackson Dart, rookie out of Ole Miss. They also drafted in rookie Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. They brought in Zach Pascal, Roy Harris Robertson, Darius Alexander, another rookie out of Toledo, Abdul Carter, rookie out of Penn State, Paulson Adebo, and Javon Holland. And their only main losses are really Drew Lock, Azeez Ojulari, Isaiah Simmons, Adoree Jackson, and Jason Pinnock. Quick brief of their additions and losses. You bring in Russell Wilson, veteran quarterback, on a one-year deal. In the 11 games that he played with Pittsburgh, he put up okay stats. He got him wins. He had about 2,500 yards, 16 touchdowns to 5 picks. He also ran 2 in. You bring in Jameis Winston, another veteran. They brought him in on a 2-year deal, and in his 7 starts with Cleveland, he did typical Jameis things. Threw for a decent amount of yards, a decent amount of touchdowns, and also a decent amount of picks. Rookie Jackson Dart, they bring him in from Ole Miss, who they took in the first round. They traded up for, so he can compete with Russell Wilson and Jameis, or sit on the bench and learn from the two guys. They bring in Skattebo from Arizona State. Great season last year. Probably the second best running back in college football statistically, only behind Ashton Jeanty, who was a Heisman candidate. I think Skattebo was up there for Heisman running too. He might have been 5th or 6th. So he had a great season. They draft him in the stacked running back class to compete with guys like Tyrone Tracy. Zach Pascal, he's an older veteran receiver. He didn't even start, I don't think, a game last year for Arizona, but in his career he averages about 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. They bring him in for a 1-year deal. Roy Robertson Harris, another veteran D tackle, they bring in now, who can help mentor or be a veteran to Darius Alexander. But Roy Robertson Harris himself only started 2 games with Jacksonville. Didn't play much in Seattle when he got traded there. But in Jacksonville, he had 2 sacks, and he averages about 3 a season. They got him on a 2-year deal. Paulson Adebo, probably one of their biggest pickups. 25-year-old, so very young corner for the Saints. In only 7 games, he had 3 picks, 10 pass deflections, and 52 tackles. They bring him in on a big 3-year, $54 million deal. Abdul Carter, their main first-round pick, who they took 3rd overall out of Penn State, first pass rusher taken in the draft, and I would agree that he is the best pass rusher. He fits that Penn State hybrid linebacker role that you saw Micah Parsons play. And then they bring in Javon Holland, another big acquisition, safety for the Dolphins. He's only 24 now. In 15 games last year with Miami, he had 62 tackles, 1 sack. So he didn't get an interception. He has gotten 5 interceptions over his previous 3 seasons. But one big thing with Javon Holland is he's missed 7 games over the last 2 seasons. So we'll see if he can stay healthy with the Giants. But the contract he signed was 3 years, $45 million. And quick to discuss their losses. Another guy I didn't include is Daniel Jones. But that's because they traded him mid-season. And then Drew Lock was their end-of-year starter, which is why I put him on here. The only 2 guys that got meaningful playing time throughout the entire season that they lost were Jason Pinnock and Adoree Jackson. Azeez Ojulari didn't honestly play that much for how good he can be. And then Isaiah Simmons hasn't really played much in general. Azeez Ojulari signed with the Eagles, and in his 11 games with the Giants and 5 starts, he had 6 sacks and 28 tackles, and he is only 24 years old, so that'll be a big loss. But I think Abdul Carter can replace him because they still have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. So you kind of had to let go of Azeez Ojulari if you're going to bring in a guy like Abdul Carter. So I think they upgraded there with how much Carter's going to play at least. Isaiah Simmons, he signed with the Packers. He only started 5 games in the last 2 seasons with New York, so not really a big loss in terms of his production with the team. Then moving on to Adoree Jackson, another guy who signed with the Eagles. In his 14 games and 5 starts with the Giants last year, he had 5 pass deflections, 28 tackles. I think Paulson Adebo is an upgrade over him. And then lastly, Jason Pinnock, probably the best player that they lost. He went to the Niners. And in 16 games with the Giants, he had 3 sacks, 1 pass deflection, and 85 tackles. Now, the reason why I think Javon Holland could be a better player for the Giants, we'll get into this a little bit more, but I think he fits a little bit more with the Giants' defense, which, again, we will discuss when we talk about the defense. But first, we got to talk about their offense. I think the big thing about this offense is that it is mainly ran by Brian Daboll, their head coach, who is an offensive-minded head coach, and I feel like this is really his last chance to be their head coach. I feel like, I know their schedule is tough, which we'll get into later, but I just think that with how the lack of success they've had, if they start off slow, he could very well find himself on the hot seat. But looking at this offense, main thing is obviously the QBs, which we already talked about, Russell Wilson, Jameis, and Jackson Dart, who all got brought in this offseason. I think Russell Wilson will get the start, and then maybe Dart comes in later if they start losing, and they're like, let's just see what Dart has. But I think they'll start off with Russell Wilson just because he's probably your best chance at winning games. I don't think you necessarily have a high ceiling with Russell Wilson, but I do think he will get you wins. Looking last year at their offense, they finished 31st in scoring with 273 points. They had a pretty bad passing offense and about an average run offense. Mainly that average run offense was because of Tyrone Tracy, who at a very young, in his rookie season, he had 839 yards, 5 touchdowns. He also managed to get 284 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. And on the ground, he averaged 4.4 yards per carry. So it was a very, very successful rookie season for Tyrone Tracy. You still have the veteran Devin Singletary, and then, of course, rookie Cam Scadaboo. I expect Tracy to be the number 1 guy there, and hopefully can improve on that average run offense, especially with a potentially improved passing game, which, again, I think will be led by Russell Wilson, and his main target being, of course, Malik Neighbors, another great rookie for the Giants last year. I mean, he was phenomenal amongst non-rookies, just receivers in general. He had 1,200 yards, around 1,200 yards, 109 catches, and 7 touchdowns. Insane season. He's already probably a top 10 receiver, if not close to it. And I expect after this season him to be a top 10 receiver, maybe even top 5. The LSU receivers are pretty good. Looking at the other aspects of this receiver room, you have more, not necessarily veterans, but guys who have been on the team for a while, like Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. Looking at Slayton, not the, most productive season, 39 catches, 573 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did average 14.7 yards per catch. So maybe you got to give Slayton the ball more. If you're Russell Wilson, Jameis, or Jackson Dart, we all know Jameis is going to give him the ball. Then they also got Wan'Dale Robinson. I really like Wan'Dale Robinson. Big Wan'Dale Robinson fan. Last year he had 93 catches, 700 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So I expect him and Neighbors to be very successful, no matter the quarterback throwing, because I think they're all capable of getting them the ball. We also mentioned Zach Pascal. You got Jalen Hyatt, who he's been up and down ever since he got in the league, but you see the big play potential still with Jalen Hyatt. And then, Amir Smith-Marset, he's more of a return man, but you can use him on plays on offense. And also, not to mention, they brought in Little Jordan Humphrey. I like Little Jordan Humphrey. I do not think he's going to end the season as, I guess it's because he's a slot receiver, which is why it looks like he's their 9th receiver. But I think he can take over Amir Smith-Marset as that secondary slot receiver in this offense. Looking at their tight ends are nothing special. Theo Johnson in 11 starts at 300 yards and a touchdown, and Bellinger in 8 starts. Didn't really do that much, to be honest. So they definitely need to improve on that tight end room. They didn't go tight end in the draft. They didn't go with a Loveland or a Warren or even any of the second-tier guys, but I think they should invest in tight end next year because it's not the best room. I mean, I guess Theo Johnson was a rookie last year, so you can expect improvement, hopefully, out of him. And lastly, looking at their O-line, their O-line, they didn't add anybody. You still have basically the entire starting O-line back with Illuminor, Van Roten, Schmitz, Runyon, and Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas, obviously, one of the better left tackles in football. You don't have to worry about him. They bring in James Hudson from Cleveland, but you're probably just going to obviously have Andrew Thomas be the starter that whole season, if possible. So you don't got to worry about him. It's the other four, a lot of veterans that they mainly brought in the last year or two, like John Runyon and Van Roten and Illuminor. I do like Marcus and Bo, the rookie lineman from Purdue, which they got. He was a 5th-round pick, so who knows how much he's going to play, but I think in the future he could be good for them. This season, we'll have to see how much playing time he gets. Now, while you do like Andrew Thomas a lot, overall the O-line was pretty bad. They gave up a lot of sacks. Who knows if the quarterbacks were just holding the ball too long, but it wasn't the best performing O-line, and they're all back. So we'll have to see how that goes. Evan Neal isn't even close to in the rotation, which is crazy. Their 1st-round pick from not too long ago. Another guy they lost is Chris Hubbard, who wasn't in the losses category, but he was a depth lineman for them. So that's the big question mark, honestly, for me. Is this O-line, and can they hold up? Before we get into the defense, again, if you're new, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Only like 5% of you who watch these videos are subscribed. We want that to go up. Please make sure you subscribe. Now checking out on the defense. The defense was much better than the offense. Just looking at it, you can obviously tell it was last year. They were 21st in points allowed. They had a pretty good pass defense, honestly. Not a very good run defense, though. Pretty bad run defense. Their main guys, obviously, are like Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, of course. Still don't know what you're going to get out of Kayvon Thibodeau yet. Brian Burns, last year, you traded for him from the Panthers. Paid him a lot of money. He did give you 8.5 sacks. Obviously, you can't just look at sack numbers, but sack production-wise wasn't that bad for you. Dexter Lawrence, you know what you're going to get out of Dexter Lawrence. One of the best D tackles in football, if not the best interior D tackle in all of football. He's right up there with the best, if not, again, the best. Raheem Roches Nunez last year. He was your main guy next to Lawrence. In 15 starts, gave you 2 sacks, 52 tackles. So you like him next to Lawrence, and hopefully Roy Robertson Harris can put up numbers after maybe an underwhelming stint with Seattle. Obviously, Brian Burns, we mentioned before, Abdul Carter, bring him in alongside Kayvon Thibodeau, so your pass rushing outside linebackers because they run a 3-4. Their off-ball linebackers are Okereke. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure, though. And then Micah McFadden. Okereke, I think it is, Bobby Okereke. He gave you 2 sacks, 93 tackles in only 12 games last year, so very good season out of him. And then Micah McFadden, honestly, pretty good player too. I wasn't too familiar with Micah McFadden before doing a little research, but in 14 starts with the Giants, he had 1 pass deflection, he had 1 forced fumble, he had 3 sacks, and 107 tackles in only 14 starts, which is kind of very impressive. And he's only 24 years old, so not familiar with Micah McFadden beforehand, but I am now familiar with Micah McFadden's game. Let me know, Giants fans, if you've been asking for more Micah McFadden hype. Then going to their secondary, I think is the strength of this team, because you obviously got Dexter Lawrence, but who knows around him. You got Brian Burns, but Kayvon Thibodeau's been up and down. Abdul Carter's a rookie. I really like their secondary, mainly for the future. I think it's a very good young secondary. You bring in Javon Holland, who is 24. You bring in Paulson Adebo, who's 25. Tyler Nubin is 23. Deontay Banks is 23. Andrew Phillips is 23. Newbin, probably the best player in that secondary last year for them. In his 13 starts, he had 98 tackles, 1 pass deflection, 1 forced fumble. And as I mentioned earlier when talking about their additions and losses, while Jason Pinnock maybe had a better season with the Giants than Javon Holland has, and maybe has been more reliable than Javon Holland, Pinnock's kind of that up-close box-type safety because he gets a lot of tackles. He had 3 sacks. He's not really that coverage type of guy, whereas Javon Holland more is that type. And I think he fits better alongside Tyler Nubin because Nubin is more that tackling, sort of strong safety type. So I feel like him and Holland have a better chance to sort of work well together than Nubin and Pinnock, which is why I like the Holland addition. And then the other 2 guys, Deontay Banks and Andrew Phillips. I'm a big Andrew Phillips fan. In only 6 starts, he had 1 interception, 1 sack, 1 pass deflection, and 71 tackles. And then Deontay Banks has kind of had it up and down first 2 years for New York. Last year in his 14 starts, didn't get an interception, but he managed to get 12 pass deflections and 52 tackles. And again, he's only 23 years old, drafted in 2023. So still tons of room for improvement for Deontay Banks. But if he can make that jump, paired alongside of Daboll, Nubin, Holland, Phillips, and even the other guys they got to back them up, I like this secondary now and in the future. I'm actually a big fan of the Giants' offseason and roster construction as a whole. Their schedule is just brutal, which we'll get into in a bit. Quickly going over their special teams. Jamie Gillian, one of the better punters in the league. You got Graham Gano last year. Didn't play a ton for them. I think only around 10 games. But in those 10 games, he was 9 for 11 from field goals. And he was perfect from extra point, 15 of 15. Solid veteran, reliable kicker. And then the return game, you got Amir Smith-Marset, who is your second slot receiver. But again, I think little Jordan Humphrey can take that spot. But if Amir Smith-Marset does lose his second string slot receiver role, he's still one of the better returners in the league. Last year, he had a 100-yard return touchdown. So I think they can have a very solid special teams with Gillian, Gano, and Amir Smith-Marset. Now, before we talk about their schedule, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Back to the schedule prediction. Again, as I mentioned before, I really like their offseason additions. I really like their team as a whole, to be honest. But their schedule is just insane. They have to play the NFC East twice, which is the Commanders, Cowboys, Eagles, 3 of the better teams in the NFC and in football in general. You have to play the AFC West, which is the Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders. The NFC North, the Bears, Packers, Lions, Vikings. And then their last place schedule features the Niners from the NFC and the Saints, which is, that's an easier opponent. But it is an absolutely brutal schedule. Just looking at this team, I'm like, this team can win 7-8 games. And then you look at their schedule and you don't necessarily think otherwise. So looking at their floor, I think, you could count the Saints game. I think maybe the Raiders and maybe like a win versus their division. Or like the Patriots, something like that. I think their floor is around 3 wins. Honestly, I was tempted to put 2 just because how brutal this schedule is. But I think Russell Wilson is a good enough quarterback to get you wins. And who knows, maybe if Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston is out there for a game without a care in the world, they get a win versus a good team. So I think their floor is about 3 wins. And then if certain things go their way, they get wins versus the Saints, Patriots, Raiders. Maybe they beat J.J. McCarthy's Vikings. I don't know. Even though I really like the Vikings. Get some more division wins. Maybe they can luck into 6 wins as their ceiling. I think at their best, they're like a 6-7 win team. And that's if they get really lucky in these games. Because they're just playing such good teams. I mean, I think the Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, Eagles, Broncos, Niners, Bears, Packers, Lions, Patriots, Vikings can all make the playoffs next year. And they play all of them. The only teams I'm not necessarily confident can make the playoffs are the Raiders and the Saints. They only play 2 teams for me that I don't think have a chance to make the playoffs. Maybe you could throw the Patriots in there. Brutal schedule. That leaves their prediction at 4-13 for me. I think it's going to be an underwhelming season record-wise. I think they have the talent to win games, but I just think that schedule's too brutal. And I think Daboll might lose his job because of it, which I think would be unfortunate because I still like Brian Daboll as a coach. But that will conclude our preview for the New York Giants. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. If you're new, subscribe. Please help me get to 500 subscribers. If I get to 500 subscribers, I will be doing a face reveal. You'll get to see the person behind Couch Casual Sports. And if you subscribe, leave a comment down below saying you subscribed, and I'll reply. But with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.